All right, everybody, welcome to Truth About Marketing. Stoked to have another awesome guest on this week. I got my friend Gino Donati. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's worked in the tech space, founded a company there called SDR Ready, and now most recently he's been working on his company BetOpenly, which he's the CEO and founder. Gino, thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you, brother.
My brother, good to see your face.
You too, man. Guy moves to Florida. I haven't seen him in forever.
I, I owe you an Arizona trip.
You do, you do. Well, why don't you start out? Give us the audience a little bit of background on yourself. Obviously, I could talk for days, so why don't you give us a little intro?
Yeah, I'll try and wind it back. In college, I used to sell women's shoes. Gino Bundy.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so I went from selling women's shoes to actually then selling gym memberships. I had a lot of fun selling shoes, and I just got a little greedy. I was like, hey, what could I sell like for a little bit more? And I wanted to actually jump to cars. And I went and started showing up at dealerships, and they were like, you're still a little young, blah, blah, blah. This is a 40-hour job week. So I was like, okay, what could I make a little more on, but not, 40-hour kind of stuff? And I landed at 24-hour fitness. So that's where my sales career started. I was selling gym memberships, and I fell in love with it because, dude, you could sell like $900 3-year deals at 24 and make 20% of that. And back then, if I was selling like one or two a week, you would only show up for your people. It was great money.
yeah,
Like I went from, it's a long time ago, but $8.25 an hour to like napkin math. Certain days I was able to show up, sell a membership, be in and out in an hour, with the
yeah.
paperwork and everything, and make good money.
Right on, right on. And then so from there, then you obviously did college, and then I know you worked in sales just like I did, some tech sales, things like that. And then now, how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, I would say I got a little lucky, right? You and I are from the Bay Area. So you graduate and it's like salespeople. I didn't major in sales. I majored in communication, graduated, and everyone I knew a couple of years older than me was like, come sell software. Like you'll be rich. And I was like, how much does it pay? And then, they told me back then, it's a long time ago, guys. And I was like, oh, that's good money. So I went from being an SDR to a team lead to an SDR manager to an AE. So I did like the typical software as a service, career path, we'll call it.
Right.
Yeah. So then I did that, and I was fortunate enough, you get paid pretty well when you hit your numbers. And I started building Bet Openly on the side. We're a bootstrapped, self-funded. I raised a couple $100,000 friends and family, but if we've spent, this is again making this number up, but let's just say we've spent about $1 million, $1.5 million. We only raised 200. The rest I've been like chipping away at over the years. This is my retirement plan.
Right. Right on. And why don't you give us a little background on like what Bet Openly is?
Yeah. So peer-to-peer. So I use these cliche terms, but so the same way Uber is peer-to-peer, you have a driver, it's their car and someone else wants a ride. The app connects the two of them. Same way Airbnb is person to person, P2P. We call it better to better. We remove the house, remove the casino. If I had to give like a little bit of an elevator pitch, I say we replace houses and charge 90 to 95% less fees. Depending on the bet types that you like, the average, and this is like a whole language for sports gamblers, so I don't want to lose anyone that's not a gambler.
Yeah.
There's a lot of synonyms for fees. There's juice, there's rake, there's vig. These are all just slang terms for fees. And we come in and we're 1% everything. So there's a word called handle, how much money goes across your table. We keep 1% of the handle, leaving 99% with the bettors. And the last thing I'll say, aside from being lower fees, which is a great value prop, really the number one value prop is when someone wins, someone loses. That sounds terrible, right? But when someone loses, someone else wins. And the reason that's so powerful is these sports books have gotten really good at getting what we call fade the public. They get the public to jump on the wrong side by setting advantageous lines and odds.
Yep. And this will, for a lot of my betting friends and people who gamble, like this will be a fun episode to listen to. But for the public, I mean, it's still sports betting's gotten huge, right? Like it's each state's now starting to legalize. They're making millions, if not billions of dollars in tax revenue. So like this is something that everybody, the general public, marketers, business people in general should want to kind of be interested in learn more about because it's taking over. Like we're seeing billions of dollars being gambled. I mean, they just came out with an article that Phil Mickelson gambled $1 billion himself over the past like 30 years. So like
He's an animal. And there's a challenge right now going on called the Phil Mickelson Challenge where you bet every game on the slate for the day. But
the Phil Mickelson, I love that.
All Mickelson aside, let me give you all an idea for the people that like eyes light up when you hear commas. Just Massachusetts and just the handle last month, 300 billion. Now, I don't want to confuse anyone.
How much of that was South Boston, Southeast?
Yeah, love it. That's the Portnoy crew.
Yeah.
What I would say though, I don't want to confuse anyone. It's a little misleading when you talk about handle. It's more like gross, and it's not even really like gross revenue, because guys like me that bet every day, you win and lose, so you have this balance that's going up and down. So if you bet 1,000 a day, which sounds like a crazy lot, but again, you're mathematically supposed to lose 10% over time.
Yeah.
$1,000 better has a 30,000 handle in a month. So just I don't want to mislead anyone, but it's still a lot of money.
A lot of money. Yeah, in simplified terms, a lot of money. All right. Well, every week when we do this, right, we do a lightning round. So it's 5 to 7 questions, depending on who the guest is, but we shoot them out. It's quick, lightning. You just give your response. There's no right or wrong answer. Kind of helps get the conversation going, but it's also good content for later so that people get like idea of where your head's at and what you're into. So I'll start that now if you're ready. You good?
Yep.
All right, ready? First one. So favorite marketing technology?
Oh man, no one's ever heard of this one. This is my secret sauce. It's called Sales Connector. It's actually a gray hat software for LinkedIn. And just so you guys know what it does, I get so busy, and again, I hope I don't sound like a tool, but I do get so busy sometimes that I forget to go into my social channels. And with social channels, the algorithms reward consistency, the behaviors you want. It's actually a really cool technology that you upload a report of right title, right company, right geo, right whatever, and it adds those people incrementally. So it keeps your social channel, it keeps my LinkedIn warm, because there are like, weeks where I forget to go in for 2-3 weeks, and it keeps you at the top of people's minds.
Nice. All right. So speaking of social, favorite social channel?
Can I give a two-way tie?
Sure.
I'm tied between Twitter and TikTok, and for very different reasons.
All right.
I feel like Twitter's replaced my news. I don't really watch TV anymore. I got rid of the cable and all of that. I feel like I still know, whether bad or good, what's going on in the world with Twitter. But my people, if you are listening to me and you have an idea, get on TikTok yesterday. The reach, the views, even though there's a lot of toxicity, it's insane. It's the most viral thing I've ever seen.
All right. So then what about least favorite social channel?
I'd probably say Instagram from a business perspective. The problem with Instagram from what I've seen is I haven't seen a successful way to categorically divide it. I go from seeing like a really cute baby to like a friend that's newly single at like a welcome back party, to like, I forget what they call those now, to like someone posting their startup. And there's just no method of the madness. So I feel like a lot of value is lost.
Okay. Brand or person with good marketing?
Oh man. Yeah, don't judge me here. I would, I'm going to go really big and then big, but you might not have heard of her. I'm going to say Kim Kardashian, because she stays in the news. Whether or not we approve of what she's doing, there is a method behind that madness. They are strategically keeping their family relevant at all times, which kind of goes back to that tool that I like. You got to stay in the news. And then I have a personal friend. Her name's Natalie Nunn. She is a marketing genius, similar to Kim Kardashian on a smaller level. But she has sold products across the spectrum of ideas, and she has found out what her demographic is and sold them 100 different products, which I think is genius. Too many people get hung up on one thing. She has no allegiance to products. She just has allegiance to her demographic.
I love that. St. Francis alum. Go Lancers. All Okay, brand with bad marketing or that needs help.
I'm going to say Mark Zuckerberg.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just don't. So again, I'm a salesperson by trade. People buy off who they like and trust. I'm being very generic here. It's my opinion, so you don't have to agree. I just don't think a lot of people like him or trust him.
You could say that about Bill
Yeah,
Gates too, probably.
yeah. I've just never heard people like, obviously his bank account would say otherwise from his business success, but I'm amazed that he hasn't invested more in marketing himself over the years.
PR publicist, something like that.
Just something. It's again, when you're worth that much, maybe you just don't
All
care.
right. And then your favorite influencer or business leader.
So this is me again, just trying to be who I am and promote the fight that's coming up. I'm going to say Elon, the yin to the yang here. I think Elon makes a lot of mistakes, but he is always out in the face of the people. So whether you love him or hate him, you say his name a lot more. And the only reason we're saying Zuck's name right now is because of Elon.
Sure.
So that's why these aren't people like, I'm not saying I like either of these people. I'm not saying I dislike them. But Elon, very fascinating human being, fascinating interviews. He takes very fascinating positions. And his book of business to me is just insane.
Yeah.
Like any one of these things would be successful, top 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And now he's done it multiple times over.
Right.
It's fascinating.
All right, and last one, brand or person you'd like to work with the most?
Oh, man. I'm going to be a little broy. Sorry, I was in a fraternity, and I bet. Now that Portnoy was able to buy his company back for $1, that's another story in itself. I know there's red tape here that I can't just tear down. But what he was able to build from a ground up marketing perspective is one of the more fascinating use cases I've seen in marketing.
Yep.
It is by far the most fascinating use case I've ever seen in sports betting. And that there was a really good quote from the owner, Kraft, of Boston. He was sitting with Howard Stern, and he said, "Do you know anyone? Have you ever met anyone that sold their company for $400 million and rebought it back 3 years later for $1?" And Howard said, "Of course not. It's never happened." And he said, "Actually, this guy sitting right here has." And Howard's like, "I'd never heard of him." So it's just, again, I think these are like my idols. But it's fascinating. The ability to sell something for so much money in such a short time frame and get it back. Even though there's a lot of red tape there. Fascinating to me. I'm more intrigued by people than like admire them, if that makes sense.
For sure. Absolutely. All right. Well, that was a little bit of the slower side of a lightning round, but we'll
oh, sorry.
We'll chop it up and make it good. So yeah, let's get right into it then and talk a little bit. I mean, from a marketing perspective, right? So I've had some people on here that their business and business models are very interesting. Like Cody's had his CBD company, and it's been interesting with the way that you're able to market that because it's, again, it's involved in cannabis and there's levels of THC and all this, like, again, red tape. What's it been like launching a gambling company or a P2P, kind of platform when it comes to marketing? Is there things you can't do that you can do that are frowned upon? Like, what's that look like?
YouTube and Google have added and removed me more times than I can count now. I don't know if it's some weird algorithm or like an account manager that just doesn't like me. But I don't want to dishearten anyone. So please don't take the wrinkles under my eyes. This has aged me alone. The fact that it's an emerging market. I always joke with people, I'm glad you brought up cannabis because my little brother has a distribution license in the Bay Area. And it reminds me so much of that 5 to 10 years ago. Some states are like, PASPA's been overturned, let's operate. Right. Other states are like, hard no, we're not going to deal with this. So I sadly have to do everything 50 times for each state, which is draining. Things change. every voting cycle. It falls on, thank the Lord, it doesn't go on every voting ballot, but at least 5 states have it on a voting ballot every other
Right.
year, which is draining. Then I need to update my geofencing. And I would say what it's taught me is like nothing's permanent. Just be
Yep.
scrappy. Like take it while you can, because it might not be there the next voting
Yep.
ticket.
That makes sense. And then, so we talk about that. I mean, there's targeting, right? Like, we have brands that we work with and whatnot that, maybe they're local, right? So, one client we have is in San Diego. So we target kind of in and around San Diego. But then for you, like gambling for the most part is a nationwide thing, but there still are states that don't, right? As a startup,
Yeah.
like how do you attack or say, okay, here's how we're going to parse out these states? Because to your point, everybody's different, right? Like a customer in the Bay Area is different than somebody is in New York versus Boston, right? So how do you attack that?
Yeah, what I would say is I first see who wants to dance. If I go up, I'm now married with an 11-month-old, but let's pretend I was single. And if I'm single at a singles party, if I go up to someone and like just the look on their face says they just don't like me or don't want to talk, I'd move on to the next one. I've taken that approach. I'll give you an example. We've gotten 2 cease and desists in our life. Not fun, right? You get this really uncomfortable letter. I can, we're above board. I'm a family man now. My family depends on me. I don't want to break
Yep.
any laws. So immediately I got the 2 cease and desists from New Jersey and from Colorado. And ironically, I won't demonize either state because I don't want any problems, but I did the same thing with both. One of them did not want to dance at all. The other one said, hey, would you mind getting on a phone and telling us your side of the story and what you're trying to do? And let's just say this, one of them, it still stands, the cease and desist. The other one, we were able to turn into a legal license. So, I'm not a political human, but I will say when it comes to emerging markets, we are the United States of America. There are 50 different interpretations. Yep. And now that PASPA was overturned at the Supreme Court level, you'd be amazed. I email some people, they're like, don't worry about it. Sounds great. Sounds super cool. You're saving, because they're right. Public servants. Some will literally reply, it's my job as a public servant to keep no monopolies, make sure everyone has an equal chance to run their business. Please show us your KYC and compliance. And that's been my experience. Other people have said, we require a full multi-million-dollar license. And I'm a little snide with them. I'm like, you realize you're just keeping the barrier of entry higher and you're causing your voters to pay more money. And they either have an excuse they tell themselves in the mirror before they go to bed, or they don't really care. So I've noticed
that's super interesting. I mean, again, as we've done and worked with multiple different businesses across state lines, and like you said, in the United States, even in Europe. I know you spent plenty of time in Europe doing business, so it's just really interesting to see how everybody engages and interacts with, again, emerging markets, new businesses, startups, whatever it might be. From that perspective, though, as we talk about bootstrapping, getting something off the ground, so put all the state to state aside. For all those people out there who are young in business or getting a company going, like what for you was kind of your staple? I mean, you talked a little bit about during the lightning round, but like how TikTok, like your reach and everything's so great. What were some of like your most successful strategies to help you get going and get the traction? I know, congratulations, you just reached, what was it? How many subscribers did you just get to? 20,000. So you got 20,000 people on the platform, active users. What is it like, or what was that journey like getting there, and what were some of the strategies that really helped you the most?
Yeah, and I hope I answer this in order, but I'll try my best. What I would say was you can't afford to outbid the competition in a space, emerging markets. There are too many established players with too deep of pockets. So you got to be willing to do what others won't so you can live how others can't, kind of cliche. I went and looked at all these companies' socials, and I saw that none of them had the founder using the profile, using the value, and just there. Founder in your face in our industry. The closest I saw was Portnoy. That even though he ran the company and did different stuff now, it was pretty easy to see his face. So that was what we did. I met some PR people. I talked to some people. They just said, why don't you try that? Put your face everywhere and just talk about the value of the site. Why you created it. You're a gambler. Talk about why you created the site that you
Right.
want for yourself. I don't know the number here, but there is a very fascinating study Stanford did about what percentage of startups were made by people that wanted that service
Mm.
for themselves. Like they
Yeah.
wanted it and they saw the market didn't have it. So that was number one, was put your face everywhere, but do it in a very thoughtful way. Um, Number two, and it's a little recycling of a question, but hopefully I reword it a bit. Find out your niche, find out where you're good, like solid green. For us, social gaming was the largest, widest stipulation that most states
Okay.
agreed with. And for those that don't know, it's I'm not a house. I can't house bets. I'm just connecting two people on opposite sides. That was the largest, most loose. Again, giving you guys an example, some states don't even have social gaming under the DOG, the Department of Gaming. As
Wow.
crazy as that sounds, they'll say if it's two people, we don't even put that under our gaming code. So that was the largest. Some people use the word loophole. I'm not a fan of that word because it makes it
Sure.
sound like you're exploiting the truth. It's actually just
Yeah.
understanding the laws. And so for anyone out there that has an idea, if it doesn't already exist, find out why it doesn't exist and try and exploit the biggest target addressable market that you
Okay.
can find.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I absolutely have to give it to you. Like, I've watched you grow this thing and, rain, snow, shine, whatever. You are on there making videos, making content, being, relevant and available to your audience, which is not easy, right? And like you said, you just got married, just had a baby, like you're going through all these things. And I've had this conversation on before where I'm like, guys, the number one thing that people do is they quit. They don't commit. They give up too early. And I can for sure say that that's something that you have not done. Like I've seen days or weeks, like you miss like one day and you're like, I'm so sorry, guys. Like, dude, like you're going to miss a day every once in a while. But, so that's super valuable. And I think like for everybody out there who's listening or watching, like definitely check Gino's stuff out and bet openly and his personal, like he's there, he shows up, he's consistent. I think that's super important. So definitely kudos on that. What is something, or what are a couple things that you did that didn't work, that you, not that you've given up on, but you're like, hey, I did do this, I did commit and it just didn't work?
Yeah, I would say if I had to look back, and we'll never know, I demonized the books too much. I shouldn't have picked, I'm David, they're Goliath. You don't pick a fight with 7 or 10 Goliaths at once. And again, I'm not calling some conspiracy theory, but I noticed like I got banned on a couple social sites and I'm like, I have like
Right.
1,000 followers on here. There's no way anyone knows to ban me. So what I should have done better in the beginning is just said, hey, they provide a really great service for these things, and I still use them for these things, and I do these 5 things differently. Instead, I basically said, if you want to use sports books and waste your money, that's on you. And like, it was just dumb because 90+% of the people that I want already signed up and use them. No one wants to hear that they're dumb for using it. So if I had to go back in time, I would have reached out to all of them, told them what we're building, and tell them I'd love to partner with them in any way, shape, or form. There was even shows they invited me on that I like didn't do, which was
For
so
exposure,
stupid.
yeah.
Like, I'm really mad at myself. If I go back, like, what was wrong with me? And there's a subculture of sports betting. They're called cappers. They're called shark. It depends what you know. There's a lot of culture. They're like professional gamblers, people that sell plays and all of that. And a lot of them just aren't good people. It's an industry that has a very dark past. My mistake was I latched onto them thinking they have access to the gamblers, and I demonized the current system. Or I should have said like, hey, I'm making electric cars, but that doesn't just necessarily mean all people that make gas cars are idiots or losers or bad for the environment. They'll come around too.
Yeah,
it was. Well,
it's interesting you say that because like, again, even like our little group chat of our boys that are together, do our fantasy football, this and that, like you still have guys that are out there, like they have bookies or they have ways to gamble or that, a sports book that's legal now, like that's all fine. but we still make wagers with each other. Like we still like it just for fun or for pride or for whatever. But like I've talked to you on BetOpenly, like, dude, we could have a platform where it's just all organized for us, right? Instead of, us hearting each other's
100%.
texts and doing like it. So there's still a need for, like you said, you could still use a book for some things. You could use your platform for another thing. And like, it all works, right?
Exactly. And to the last point I want to make on your question, I was too greedy in the beginning. So we're releasing a thing called Direct with Friends. Colin, you're going to love it. It's 0% juice. I only was making things that made me money. So like that's a perfect example where why did I need to pinch up? If two people know each other in real life and I could just offer them software and direct payments, I don't need to make money off everything. I can make money off other stuff. And I spent the first 2.5 years only making products that could profit. I should have made products that made the industry better, selflessly acquired the users and found ways to make money off them later. And I'm really disappointed, but it's because I bootstrapped. It's my excuse, but no excuse. The reason I self-funded, so I wanted to prove to myself I could turn a profit, where if I raised money, I think I would have had people behind me saying, don't rush, just get new users, don't rush. And that's one thing I miss. I wish I invested more in the growth of the users versus just the growth.
Well, that's a super
of the
weird
money.
dichotomy too. And you and I have both worked in tech and been around Silicon Valley, right? And like, I think there's a very, in between there of users versus profit, right? Like, how many companies that sit in Silicon Valley right now that are worth billions of dollars that don't make anything, right? Like, so I think sometimes, to your point, you're a little hard on yourself, like trying to sit there and be like, oh, I want to make money, I want to make a profit. But you also have to understand, like, some of the most successful companies in the world don't make anything, right? Like they kind of either break even or lose money. So it's hard. But I totally get where you're coming from. As we talk more about kind of acquisition of users and getting things going from that perspective, you just kind of touched on, hey, you got to forget about the money sometimes. As you look forward now, what are some of the ways that you think, even from a marketing and or sales or whatever, that you're going to acquire more users?
Yeah. So we're doing a bunch of like niche things. So I just signed a deal with a company called Rise MMA. Think of them as like the minor league baseball to the MLB of the UFC. And I didn't know this whole world. I didn't realize that they call them amateurs. A lot of them fight and they're not even paid. I thought amateurs like were paid less. I didn't realize like when there's a backyard fight at some like high school and they put up the ring, some of these guys are making nothing. So that was eye-opening to me. So us being able to add again with the no money part, just to acquire new users, I'm not going to get rich off people betting on that. There's 500 people in there. But the guy I talked to was like, hey, friends and family really like supporting their fighter. And they want to go there and be entertained. And we do these basically nonprofit events. We don't make a lot of money, but we sell beer, we sell food, anything you could do to get people to stay in the seats. So I helped them create a contest where you could bet the whole card at an amateur fight. So it's super cool. I won't get rich off it, but it will get us new users. It'll get people representing our brand. I hope it will scale out. That's one thing. Another one, I'm afraid to say this name because people tie it so much to like Ponzi and scam, but we had a huge push to invest in us. We have some really diehard fans. They're like, dude, you're changing the game. I love you, blah, 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 the early adopters. And we recently sold out our NFTs about 2 months ago and not pushing them hard on anyone, sold it all in private. And we gave them, they give a discount on the juice. So we basically gamified. And what we're going to do now is unlock for other people to bet all these things. So the reason I'm saying that, we've built a really complex platform, and that platform allows us to add new things very easily. So it's not some like crazy investment in NFTs. It's like it was a 1 month project.
Okay.
Real
yeah.
easy.
So that gamification element obviously also helps a ton. I mean, you're already in gaming, but like I noticed that too with any kind of like user communities or anything like that. Even if you make like a activity leaderboard, I mean, the place I live in, there's literally a leaderboard for like who's the most active in your community and and you get more points and you get like I don't care to share pictures with the rest of the community, but like, oh, all of a sudden I get $100 gift card to a dinner, like, whatever, and I start posting. You know what I mean? It just makes people want to be active and involved. So I
Yeah.
get that for sure. That's cool. And then, as you continue to look forward into the future, we've talked a little bit about how you haven't spent anything as far as ad dollars, really. Like, if any, like it's 0.001% of what people normally spend. So I want you to kind of explain the thought process on that, because obviously at some point you will have to spend on ad if you're going to scale. But like, talk a little bit about how you got to where you are today without doing that.
Yeah. And I never want to argue with you because everything you said I think is facts. The only thing that I would push back on is I don't know if I ever will spend. And that sounds crazy to say. I say I don't know. And let me tell you why. And again, if anyone out there knows marketing better than me, please counter this. The industry of acquiring new gamblers is heavy ads, multi-million-dollar companies, and paying to have people join and gifting them an allowance to hopefully hook them in. Now, I want to word this super lightly. I'm really surprised that's allowed because you're not allowed to give away cigarettes or alcohol. Surprising they let you give away stuff in gambling, but that's a separate thing. So I'm in this industry. They do that because they have a system where if you lose it back, they keep it. Because I'm peer-to-peer, if I gifted two people money and they bet each other,
right,
I lose all of that. It doesn't come back. So I physically can't do what my competitors could do, even if I wanted to. So now think of me as handcuffed a bit. And secondly, these people have deep pockets and deep profits, and their products go really deep. Like they'll have you bet, they'll house your parlays, and they also will let you play blackjack on there. So they have a pretty good idea of their user acquisition cost and how much money comes across the table they can keep. So it's very hard. I almost decided, this is a long answer to your question. I almost decided a long time ago, no matter what, I couldn't mirror what they're doing. So I have to be different. So what we're planning to do is more of a reward system like you talked about. Letting people refer people, giving them access to free things. So I'm going to give you an example. We're going to do a contest, and the 32 people that get the most people to sign up each get one Super Bowl team to cheer for all year, and the winner of the Super Bowl gets $1,000. So there will be 32 winners, but you're not going to be too excited if you get the, no offense, Arizona Cardinals this year.
Yeah.
I know you're a Niner guy, but just we're going to try and make it what friends would do amongst friends. So we're trying to build a peer-to-peer and not get away from all the commas and the throwing out the bread to the mob.
Well, I was just going to ask too. So that's a super interesting strategy that like all these, sports books and stuff use. It's like, we'll give you $300 in free bets, $500 in free bets. Oh, free parlay. Oh, if you bet $1 on Cooper Kupp to get one catch, we'll give you 20. But like, it's all this kind of gimmicky, like whatever. And again, the whole point is just to get you to latch in and like now spending your own money. But at what point do you feel like those things are just, they're trash in terms of acquisition? Or do you actually think that, hey, it just is what it is and they are good, we just can't do them?
Yeah, what I would say is I've never seen behind their lines, so I don't know their exact numbers. But being a little evil, if you're giving away small amounts and that attracts people, this is a gambling site. The more money people spend, so like at one end, it's not that I don't want $10 bettors. I absolutely do. But at one end, if you're only doing things that attract the lowest tier, I kind of feel guilty where I'm like, dude, if money's that tight, I don't really want them betting. And I know I'm not trying to be like the philosophical dude in the gambling space, like give me a break. But sincerely, I'm like, if $10 is worth them doing all this stuff for me, I don't know if I want to attract these people to gambling. And I mean that sincerely. And then going a couple steps further, we're already seeing it not work. I'm not going to name any names, but I'm deep in this industry now. I know most of the founders by first name and text message. We're all cool with each other. There's guys that were paying $150 for, to get DFS. For you guys don't know what that means, daily fantasy, like really popular FanDuel, DraftKings style stuff, underdog prize pick style, that went bankrupt. They took Colin's point earlier. I think why I'm so tight with money is I came from the SaaS space where I still make all my money on SaaS consulting and my other staffing business. I watch founders burn through millions recklessly. So I was almost like afraid of that because I've watched it and I've made, my little money that they pay me and watch these companies go over and over. But their VCs just all they care about is 10x, 20x, or zero. They don't care about anything else. So I was like, well, I don't want 10x or zero. I want slow and steady. Every month is better than the previous. So my personal experience in SaaS at startups that burn through 10, 20, $30 million rounds and don't even exist anymore kind of jaded me. And I do see a lot of similarity in the books, except that these already are billion-dollar companies. So they're just kind of
for sure. No,
that's
a great point. And again, I think it makes you a little bit more cognizant of, seeing, and even for myself, like when I was running Protocol and whatever, like I was trying to do everything I could to cut costs. Like I would never, spend money on like fancy dinners or like, some, exorbitant flight or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like my old company, Ignite, the CEO didn't even fly first class. He's like, oh no, I can just fly coach. And it was like, wait, what? But it's respectable for sure. So continuing kind of on this marketing thread, I think it's really interesting, to your point where like alcohol, right? You can't be seen on screen drinking alcohol, right? When it comes to what's the other one? So in alcohol, you can't be seen on screen doing that. There's like multiple like, hey, we don't allow you to do certain things.
Yes. Cigarettes are gone. I don't even think you can
barely see it.
Like
there's just all these like restrictions. It's funny because like you said, I haven't really seen a ton of restrictions on gambling. Like they kind of, especially with the guys with the deep pockets, right? Your Caesars, BetMGM. Like I see ads for that stuff all the time. You got Peyton and Eli Manning. You got John Sally. These are making it seem like gambling. And in my honest opinion, this is just me personally. Like, I don't know. I don't really have an addiction to anything in my opinion, but like I love sports. And gambling's like a slippery slope, dude. If you end up gambling and like you get really attached to it, it's hard to get away from because then it's hard for you to watch sports without making a bet or anything like that. So what do you think the future is going to look like as far as Mark? Do you think it ends up going the same way as alcohol and cigarettes and things like that? Or
let me answer this like thoroughly with a lot of my opinion. The first question, I do think you will see heavy restrictions. We have a generation, the degen generation being raised right now on what NFT can I buy that's going to 1,000x overnight with no use case whatsoever, pure Ponzi. So it's worth as much as someone else is going to pay you for it. No other value whatsoever. I do like cryptocurrency a lot. So people would tie that to crypto. I would say Bitcoin's going to be around and put my name next to that for a long time. So I do think restrictions are coming. Secondly, I think something's going to happen where a generation of bankruptcies and stuff plagues the youth, and they go back and look at what we did for 5 or 10 years. And so I do think all that's coming. Now, going a step deeper, and I hope this doesn't get too dark for your show, gambling is super unique. Now, when you go to a movie and spend the money, you pay that, you get what you paid for, and you leave. I'm going to talk like super dark, and I don't mean to. But like my little brother legally sells pot, marijuana in California. People buy drugs, even though you might not support drugs. I don't support drugs. I'm just not saying that. Even if an illegal person, a drug dealer, you give them the money, they give you the drugs. Gambling is one of the only things that both sides want to win and one gets burned. Very unique. It's not like any other industry. So it's super unique in that sense. And the reason I tell you that is it has a lot of similarities to things with heavy addiction that they snowball. The same way, when I was 16 or 17 and I tried pot for the first time, you hit it once. And then, if you do that every day for 10 years, you're smoking more than one hit. Gambling's similar in the sense that most people don't bet $10 and then bet $10 10 years later. It does go up. So I hope I didn't lose anyone with my opinions, but that's the best bridge I can draw is it does snowball similar to other industries that we don't allow to advertise.
That's a very good point. I never really thought about it like that in terms of, just look at it as you can use the common denominator word of tolerance, right? So like if you smoke weed, your tolerance gets a little more and a little more and a little more. Same with your risk tolerance when it comes to betting. You bet a little, then you bet a little more, then you bet a little. So that's really interesting that you brought it like that.
Yeah.
So as a small company, right, and you're seeing a lot of red flags coming down the road, right? As you continue to grow, and again, you talked about like not really wanting to raise a ton of money. You're trying to be very bootstrapped and smart about what you do. What's your growth path as far as like growing a team and scaling? And because again, you're a very small operation still. Like, what does that look like from going from startup to your next inflection point?
Yeah, I'll say two things. So one, the being able to turn a cease and desist into a win was very eye-opening because now I know, as exhausting as it is, I need to do this multiple times. I don't expect too many cease and desists, but I do expect, unfortunately, right now we're 4 years old, we've had 2. So hopefully that very slow pace stays on, and I only have to deal with one every other year. Now I have a playbook. Secondly, for growth, we actually just started a program with college kids, and it's very firmly based. These kids wanted to bet more. And I said, no, $10 limit. That's the max. Because I don't want you to show up anyone in your school, in your frat. Show them that you can. And this is, again, my theory, so I hope people respect it. It was actually part of the case that helped me overcome my cease and desist. I explained that absolutely people have gambling problems, and I'm going to try and help that. But I said there is this one aspect of gambling that a lot of people don't know and respect. If my wife wants to go to a dinner nowadays, I live in Palm Beach, Florida, it's $300. If we go to a movie, it's $50 to $75, just like popcorn, soda, whatever. I said, you can literally sit on your couch, watch a game, and put a little action on it, $10, $20. It's less than the movie. You are as excited and as engaged. And unlike the movie, roughly 45% of the time, if the books are really good, you get your money back and more. So I tried to explain that was the growth, the direction I'm going in, is I really want to show people that gambling should just be used to enhance the fun of a game versus betting on games that you don't care about just to have money on them. That's when you get into a slippery slope. So our plan is to make an entire playbook on early signs of a problem because I want to get in front of all that. Now to the scaling piece. We got 30 kids to sign up. Actually, we had 55 kids sign up from one TikTok post. And they all agreed for just a $250 put in their account to go all football season betting $10 and reporting one post a week. So, do the math. That's a lot of posts over the time. They saw it as $250 free. They're like, this idiot's paying me to gamble. I love it. I let them keep the pot. So they're like, I'm gambling free, $10 a week. And what I'm hoping this becomes is, that's not as exciting as those $1 million, $1 wins 100,000, blah, blah, blahs that they push pretty hard. But you can actually enhance the fun of a sports game because gambling to me is more about being right than about the money. If you do it right, if it's about the money, it's dangerous. So if gambling's about being right and socializing like you and your buddies in that friend group, that's actually healthy. It's just alphas being alphas, wanting to be right. I told you so. I knew it.
Right.
These are things you see us gamblers say. And then when we lose, we make an excuse why we lost. But if gambling's about the money, I tell people, if you're trying to make money gambling, the best thing you can ever do is not gamble.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more on that. But let's, if you focus a little bit more on the actual business aspect of it, again, you're a small you've had a very small team, very small growth path. Like,
Yeah.
for people out there who are in your stage, and again, you're doing a lot on your own, right? Like, you're making these videos, you're producing them, you're putting them out,
Yeah.
like TikTok, Twitter, you name it. What is kind of your advice as far as,
I can.
being able to do that yourself, and then, hey, like, might need to hire like a marketing agency, or need to hire some support? Like, what would that be your
I
advice?
get it. Yeah. So number one, if you can, try and be product led. It's not easy. So PLG, product led growth is the cheapest led growth. It's not easy though. I want to be clear on that. Everyone wants this, but so I'll give you two examples. One, I talked about this. We're adding the bet with friends, 0%. It's going to take
Mhm.
us all of 2 weeks to create. We're switching our API right now so we can add all sports and all bet types. So we expand our market. But once we add this bet with friends, I am hoping at the very least we average a 1-to-1. So what did I do? If there's going to be some superheroes that they send direct bets to like you, a group of
Yeah.
12 guys. So Colin's a super user. But if we can just average a 1-to-1 growth, we grew 100%
Mhm.
on a 2-week project for product year over year. I don't think it will happen overnight. That would be a massive win. Secondly, we obsessed over integrations. I wish I did this earlier. We now made our API, again with the product led. Anyone that asks us, we can post any bet type, any sport, any details
Wow.
in their
Okay.
Discord for free. So these have been super good integrations to get our logo, our name, and these communities see that as a plus. Hey, you have better lines and odds, and you're going to put that in my Discord for free?
Right.
Absolutely, brother. You're helping us grow users. So that's one side, and then I'll answer the other side. So I have tried to do product-led growth. This kind of, again, I am who I am and how I made my other money. I run fractional sales development for software startups. The company SDR Ready, formerly Seed to Seed. We help companies go from their seed round to their C round of funding. I super believe in fractionalizing specifics. So we already have more people on our team than a lot know, and they just do one thing and they do it really well, and they do it 1 hour a day. Overhead has not been a lot, but they've already showed they can pay for themselves. And I'm going to be that boring. I tell people, this is just a side hustle. I can't afford you. You need to have another job. But if you crush these numbers, I will double your hours. And we will do that until you go from 10 to 40. Nice. And when you get to 40, you have a job offer. So that's been my hack is college kids, product led.
I think that's a great model, though. That's really cool. I think
specialists.
that's going to be awesome. A lot of people will love that kind of idea and mentality you have there. So with that, though, so again, you talk about kind of these hacks or these things. Out of everything you do, what is like your favorite productivity hack, right? Like out of all of the stuff that you do.
Yeah. No matter what, and you kind of made fun of me, but I wear it on the chin. It was a respectful made fun of. I commit to one social media post a day. And anyone out there, if you check me out, you won't be impressed. I don't put on makeup. I don't do my hair. I just commit to giving feedback. So it can be a real-time event. It can be something prevalent in the news. It can be a product release. I wrote down 9 dash marks, a little checklist of 9 posts that have done well in the last 2 years, 3 years. Not all of the mirrors do as well as those posts, but I know they resonated. And once a day, I do one of those. And I do also recycle. What I put on Twitter, I'll now put on Threads. What I put on Instagram, I'll put on the TikTok story. And then whatever I film for TikTok, I'll put on Facebook Reels and YouTube Shorts. And it might sound like a lot, and I'm telling you, it is draining. So again, I don't want to dishearten you. When you feel drained, I feel drained all the time. But that is my commitment. It's like I have this thing, if I don't work out, and I'm not a big guy by any means, I just do 10 push-ups. Is 10 push-ups going to change my life? No, right. But you absolutely have time to do 10 push-ups. So
I love that though, because like I said, for me, even when I started this, video series and podcast, I said, I'm not going to do it unless I can commit to one video a week, one interview a week. And again, making the shorts, making the reels, making that come off of it. No, it is time consuming. It is draining, but that was my commitment to doing this. And so, I'm only a couple months in, 2.5 months in, but those days that even that you don't feel like doing it or whatever, like it still is rewarding. And then like to look back and be like, look at all the stuff I've done and all that, you're seeing it now. But here's the biggest thing is like, again, I'm only 2.5 months in, you're 2.5+ years in, right? And you've been doing this. And so like, I think that that's super cool to be able to see that, hey, because most of the time you hear these people talking, your Gary V's and your Grant Cardones, don't give up, keep doing it, more content, blah, blah. And you're like, all right, bro. But like, really though, if you do commit, and like you said, it doesn't have to be high production value. You don't have to have nice cameras and all this fancy stuff. A little ring light and a phone does just fine. So
that's it. And just to back up something you said earlier, I want to like really drive home is although you might not see yourself like these people, you might cringe when Gary Vee opens his mouth. You might not like Grant as a human. I will say, just if you could pull out similarities from people that have made it on the PR or marketing side, that's what I would do. And if you put a mask over all these people and shadowed their voice, all of them say consistency, time, don't quit. And one thing I'll say, and I hope this is helpful just to one person out there, as an entrepreneur, it's almost like you become bipolar overnight. And your biggest civil war, it's internal, your internal war. And I will tell you, the weirdest thing that I've tried to like mentally overcome is weeks where nothing changes. You feel like your business is taking off, and then the next year you feel like it's failing. And all I will say is if you ignore what you think and just do the same things when you think you're doing really well and when you think you're failing, you'll kind of plow through.
No, absolutely.
The failing
it was actually crazy. I just watched a thing this morning. It was Seth Rogen, and he was talking about, actors and making it, right? And he's like, I can tell you one thing. He was like, if you keep going, you might make it at some point. But if you quit, you're absolutely not going to make it. He's like, and he was using examples of like older actors, guys that are like in their 60s and 70s that like nobody knew who they were until they were like 60. And he's like, but now they're some of the most famous actors in the world, And so it's just about that keep going, consistency, and it's true. It really is true. So is there anything so far, like as we kind of wrap up, is there anything so far that like I haven't asked you that you want to touch on or you haven't got to talk about?
No, all I would say is if you're serious about being an entrepreneur, try and find something you at least enjoy, because if you don't enjoy it, at least I can promise you, when you have the cold spill, when you have the doubts, you'll quit it to go to something else. There's nothing wrong. Like I said, I admire Elon's multiple entrepreneurship. He has multiple businesses, but I do like this quote, and I hope it helps someone. If you chase two foxes, you catch none. It's an old, I think, Russian proverb. The point is, if you think you just need to find the right product, sometimes it's not the product, it's you. And if you give up on things that you don't really love, if you're not like into fitness, but you start a fitness company, I'm not saying you can't make it. It's just a lot harder because then you grow out of it. So try and do something that you actually catch yourself doing, not for work. And for me, to Colin's point, and I took it as a high compliment, if this wasn't sports betting and something I've been doing religiously since I was 15, I would have quit. I'm telling you all flat out. But I do this anyway. And it was a lot harder to get to where I am than with my other company. My other company has made more money, but I just don't like it as much.
Right.
So no, absolutely. I'm still here because I like it.
I've done PR, I've done media, I've done marketing, and I'm good at it. But like, if I could figure out a way to make money golfing or in the golf industry, I would do it, right? Like, and maybe at some point I will. But for now, like, that's just not in the cards. So absolutely get it. And that's really good advice. One other thing that we do, like before I finish up, is there anything that you want to ask me, like any questions that you have for me? Because I fire you questions the whole time. So.
No, I was going to ask you about this. How are you enjoying it? It's getting on camera, getting repaired.
It's actually,
people say things you weren't expecting. Are you enjoying this?
Every once in a while. And ultimately for me, I think the biggest thing about it is that I got out of my comfort zone. Like, again, I want all the video, all the recording, all the audio, everything to be perfect. And like you said earlier, your production value and everything you do is not great, but it still succeeds. It still has a lot of success. It's been really interesting to me to kind of step outside of my comfort zone and figure out that, like, hey, not every question has to be perfect. Not every, recording is going to be the best. Some shows will be great. Some shows will be a little less, but ultimately I take value from everything. It's the conversations, it's, the production, it's the response from people who are watching it. It's just been super cool to see it even just in the 2.5 months, like, grow and get a lot of people who are like really invested and involved and saying like, hey, this is great. I watched this. And I'm like, it's that whole fallacy that you think that nobody cares and nobody's watching. Like, there are people watching. There are people that are going, hey, that was really cool. That was really valuable. So it's been awesome, man. I really love it. Hopefully, you got a podcast, or you've been doing some episodes, right, for your with your partner, right?
Yeah, we'll start that in like 2 weeks. AK and I do a bunch. And you just made a light bulb go off in my head too. I think the biggest misconception I had was the content was better the more likes and views it got. I'll tell you this right now. That is great for lead and user acquisition. But some of the videos that had the least amount of views got me the nicest, most heartfelt DMs. Yeah. So if I had to rephrase what I'm saying, I'm going to, again, speak my opinion. What goes viral is usually a little divisive, a little on edge. So don't always seek that. That's good too for max outreach, but that doesn't need to be your only brand. You can also say things that are authentic to you. And I'm telling you, you'll get lifetime value people. Some of my least popular content.
That's a super good point. Super good point. Because I think there's a lot of people that they're out there like headline chasing or looking for that viral clip. And it's like, look, what's crazy is out of all the videos, like in little snippets that we make off this show, dude, most of the time the lightning round is what performs the best. And it's just people giving their answers of like what their favorite technology is, what their favorite influencer. And it's just because people are curious about what other people like and what other people are doing, right? And like, versus I've had some what I thought were very like prophetic or like profound pieces of content that I'm like, why didn't anybody like this? Like, it's weird, right? But it's, so for everything that you have that like goes viral or has like a lot of engagement, it doesn't necessarily mean it's your best piece of content. It's just, it is what it is. The algorithm picks it up differently. People, engage with it differently. It's all good. But I really appreciate what you're saying there, because you still want to be authentic. You want to be who's you. And that's when you are your brand, people will recognize that and they'll engage with you. You know what I mean? And I get way more out of somebody sending me a DM or engaging with me than I do out of 100 likes. Like, that doesn't do anything for me.
100%. And you just nailed it. Like, I would say people buy off people they like and trust. That's, an old quote from a sales book from the 80s, but it's true. Don't seek virality, because
absolutely
sometimes you're attracting the wrong crowd.
You'll spurn some of the people that were your loyal, that loved you for not being that, right? So then all of a sudden you sell out and you start doing this viral bullshit. Like, absolutely. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. As usual, I got to give a shout out to my Go HighLevel folks over there. They have an awesome affiliate program. The software is incredible. I use it for my marketing company and also for this podcast video series. There's a link in the video and a link in the bio. Check it out. Get a couple weeks free. Also can DM me, ask me any questions you got about it. It's an awesome platform. Gino, thank you again. Incredible to have you. Looking forward to catching up again soon, brother. All right, my man.
Thank you, brother.
Oh,